Welcome to the BPM 360 podcast. I'm Russell.
And I'm Caspar. And together we will help you navigate the treacherous waters of the BPM adoption journey. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the BPM 360 podcast. I'm your host, Caspar, and it's a pleasure to welcome back as well my trusted friend and co-host, Russell. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Caspar. Yeah, it's great to be back in the recording in the season, in the podcast season after spending so much time in the summer outside with good weather. At last, it's raining again, and we can spend quality time talking. You're in a hotel traveling.
Yeah.
I'm happily at home, but I'm also a bit frustrated, to be honest.
Why?
Just gives so. Actually, I was thinking about all this automation and KI and AI, and it was saying you're going to lose your job and you're not going to be worth anything anymore. And I was really. They said you have to go back to hardware. If you could do things with your hands and do hardware, then there's still value in what you do, and you're not going to be replaced by an agent. So I thought, oh, that's cool. And I took up one of these old projects I wanted to do. So I have a humid cellar, and I still had a Raspberry Pi laying around. So I started doing my own automation project to actually ventilate the cellar depending on the humidity and the temperature of outside and inside. Taupunkt, the Germans call it.
Cool. Yeah.
So it all worked out fine. I just did, and I started soldering these Pico, these Raspberry Pico kind of like elements. But then I connected up one sensor, one of these humidity sensors. I wired it up wrong. So plus and minus I mixed up. A classic mistake.
Classic one. Yeah, apparently.
And then had it all automated and listed up, did some actions, and then I started saying, it's not reading anything. And I touched it, and it was burning. Well, not fuming burning, but and I went, oh God, no, I seriously, and I knew I had to be careful about this, but I did a classic switch of plus and minus, and then ChatGPT helped me, and I said, if I fried it, and he said, yes, most probably you fried it. So connected up. Not the platinum, the Pico that's fine, but they only cost €2, but it's a pain that I got so far. And I had everything set up, but anyway, so that's a bit of a frustration, but it's great fun, and it's 8:00 now, so it's okay. From 7:00 on, you start taking time for some hobbies.
Sure, yeah.
But sometimes it's always also with our line of business, just have to be meticulous. Sometimes you just have to check things again and again, and sometimes it's just I
know.
It's about being meticulous as well. Yeah,
I spent a couple of days in my vacation painting the outside of my house, and trust me, it gave me a lot of respect for people who do paint work. I love to paint walls indoors, interior walls. That's easy. You just roll them basically. But the outside, when you have a brick house, you basically are just you're stamping the entire house, and then you swipe across a little bit. But it's heavy work.
Oh yeah,
it's really heavy work. There is no AI that's ever going to do that.
Now, don't they have airbrush kind of like machines where you just have like a big power gun?
So this is interesting. So this is the classic, and I think we can talk about this about BPM as well. Here we go. There is the trade-off between, do I want to start fast and take a little bit longer, or do I want to spend an eternity masking everything off? What you need to do when you use a spray gun, and then be done with the painting real quick. Same with BPM. Do I want to start fast and then come to the conclusion I need to evaluate my convention on modeling, or do I want to spend some time up front doing the convention part and set it up properly, and then make a lot of speed with the actual modeling?
So obviously you're the fast track guy. And in
this
BPM
case,
and in BPM, I think everything we preach is about think first,
preparation,
think big, start small.
Yes,
but it's a lot about the. And I was talking to somebody not too long ago. He says, "Yeah, but this investment at the beginning, on the whole journey that you're doing.
True.
You don't have to define the conventions and think about every stakeholder that you will be encountering in 5 years, but you have to be prepared in a manner that it can go this direction. So like planning a big trip, you do have to have certain things set up that you are flexible, or you can adapt and you can embrace these topics when they come along. And I think that's where we as advisors do come in, because a lot of people we talk to, they can't, it's like saying, but isn't it just a trip down the road? Says, yes, but we will be crossing the Bronx, so we need to take the AK. Whatever situation says, and trust me, you're going to get thirsty if you go. It's like talking to kids when you go on a long walk. It says, have you taken water? No, I thought we'd just be away from. No. So preparation, I think, around process management is a lot. It's really, and it's sometimes also, if you look into the use cases, what is ISO about? It's being prepared to ensure quality. This is continuity management. It's being prepared for a disruption in your supply chain or your organization. So a lot of these things we're doing around these management circles, where BPM actually, it supports them, is a lot about being structured and prepared to be able to react in an adequate manner. And I think there is a counter side to it, because how do you still maintain flexibility? How do you still achieve not a state of we have to be like, I exaggerate, the quality manager says, I want total control, everything's documented, don't change anything. So because I've got this all worked out, don't do anything, don't change anything. It says, but the process owners died. What do we do now? Oh my God, how are we going to adapt to that? No. So balancing out the clear methods and structures and guiding principles of process management, but being adaptable in your mindset, in your culture, and the way you actually apply these methods to very different use cases and situations. I think that's the balance we have to find. So coming back to your house, it's about how can you, let's say, minimize the planning effort around, but still get the blaster in to save you 50% of your time when you do go painting the walls, instead of going in with a hairpin paintbrush and trying to do it bit by bit.
I did find that balance because just before I painted the outside of the house, I actually painted we have these built-in sunscreens, and they're automated, and they were white, and we had the window frames painted black recently. We had that done, by the way, because that really is a specialized job. I don't want to do that. But the sunscreen frames were white and they were steel. So instead of doing a lot of difficult things, I simply took them off and I brought them down into the basement where I could freely sand them down, prepare them, and then ground them and spray paint them. And spray paint in the end is so much nicer. And then you reattach them to your wall. There I took the balanced approach. When it came to my outside wall, it was like, it's an outside wall. If I spill some paint, I'll clean it up where and when it happens, and then let's go. And then you need to think about, when do I do this? It was summertime. If the sun's on the wall, you can't paint. It's too hot. So I got up around 5 o'clock in the morning, was up the ladder at 5:30, and was done by 8 o'clock in the morning for one part of the wall. And that worked pretty good. So, but anyway, welcome to season 4, Russell.
Yes. So what is the plan? What's the plan?
Do we have a plan?
Well, we have it. Looking forward, I think we have. I've already lined up some guests, so I'm going to be interested in seeing who you've lined up. So I'm going to do a shout out here so we can, also
okay, good. I'll do that too.
Put some pressure on the people. So definitely this season, which we didn't manage to get done last season, I want to have Holger Wüsthoff on the show. He's committed to this. So a long-term customer and colleague and competitor, whatever you want to call it, but actually ultimately a friend of mine. And I think we got a lot of topics to talk about. I also have an ex-colleague of mine, Petros, I would like to invite to the show. He's done some fantastic projects in the Middle East and in Greece, where he comes from. So, and always been very strongly committed to enterprise architecture and process management. So, I think he's a real asset for this podcast. And definitely, I'm looking into some, let's say, more people on the ground, customer side, to bring them in.
Yeah. Cool.
And as far as I know, we have a joint event down in
That's
Stuttgart.
So I'm working on. So I have confirmation that we are going to get one of the more knowledgeable professors on BPM, Professor Hayo Reyers, on our podcast, and we're going to interview him very shortly after the big international BPM conference that takes place in Seville in Spain in September. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I have the verbal agreement with a very interesting guest who works at Scania. He's called Jesper Blomster. He did a very interesting presentation during one of the events that we had in London not too long ago. We think about these things quite the same on a lot of topics, but I love to hear his story, how he actually made it happen at a truck company. And then, of course, we didn't manage to plan it last season, Russell. We have Etienne Kneschke that we also have on the guest list.
I was going to ask you about that one. He's still on the list.
I saved the treats for last. So yeah, we need to make an appointment with Etienne as well. Although the Prozessphilosophen beat us to it because they had him on the podcast, but that was in German, so we can do it in English. All good. And then I'm very looking forward towards the end of September, where you and me and the crew from What's Your Baseline, the crew from the Prozessphilosophen, will all be at the same conference. That's going to be a massive thing. So I'm looking forward to that one.
True, because I've never met Roland in person. In all
honesty, I don't think I have ever met him in person either, even though I worked in the same company as him for a couple of years. But he was already in the US by then. I might have seen him in one sales kickoff. I don't know. I can't really remember, which if we did, Roland, sorry in advance that I don't remember that. But no, but I'm looking forward to meeting him in person for sure.
Cool. So maybe just one topic. We were talking about, planning and BPM. So I saw that you haven't actually got around to actually digging into it in detail, but you have a new article out in LinkedIn. So just BPM back to basics. So, and how does that fit into this picture that what we're talking about? Are we looking forward? What is going back and looking backwards good for? Are you talking about the good old times? As BPM was still...
No.
So what's the take on it? Give us a bit of an insight.
So most people know what I do in my daily job. So during the daytime, I'm an advisor on process management for Salonis and on the process management topic. And then during nighttime, I put on the podcaster cape with you and we do this podcast. But very often when I talk to companies on process management, very often the question that I need to ask is, why are you doing this? Why are you pursuing this journey to be more process-centric? I mean, I know why you should do it, but I want to hear it from you. And I get very, very diverse answers on that question. So I thought, to kick off also my article publishing routine again after summer, because I took about 2 months off from all of that, and which was lovely. I thought, let's go back to the roots. And write a little bit of a storyline about why should you think about process management in the first place, and what kind of deliverables did it used to have? And spoiler alert, we have different ones now. I'm going to be careful. We're in the similar age bracket, Russell. So we both know.
Depends on how far you define the bracket, but that's okay. I'll take that one.
Let's take a decennium. Let's take a decade. That's a safe bet. Yeah. And we're in the same decade, which is great. But you remember when we back in the early 90s, there was a lot of business process redesign. SAP was launching it. It was going pretty much from R3, and then they were going to to 4.6, which was a big step up. And quality management, in many cases, owned the process management topic. And the deliverables that process management projects often had were like, we need to have process maps. Very often compliance driven, and they could take any shape or form. They could be PowerPoints or Visios, or they could be in Aris. That was one of the only ones at the market then. There were a couple, but not too many. Now, so that is where it came from, and there are still organizations out there that believe that that is the goal of implementing BPM. And what I try to argue in the article in this case is, we fast forward 3 decades, you'll find that it's no longer the fact that you create a process map that's a deliverable. The process map is a basic hygiene factor right now, I would say. It is there to improve your understanding of how does my organization work and how does everything link together. Because at the moment that you have insights in the way that roles and systems and risks and controls and standards and inputs and outputs and activities relate to each other, you'll be much more agile as a company. Because the moment that you need to change something, and those forces are there continuously nowadays, you'll know much quicker what the potential impact's going to be. That's one of the biggest, I would say, that's one of the biggest benefits of doing BPM right now. So a process map is there, but it's not there as a deliverable. It's there as a means to an end, not as the end itself. How do you look at that? Just if that's just, you should read the article, obviously, but you will, I know. But just your first opinion, that your gut instinct.
I'm sure there is a shift in the dynamics around the process management and also the dynamics, because we were laughing about, say, you have how to embrace agility, and that before people were thinking about it was a static, I need the map, I define it, it's there, what do we do next? And not using it as like a tool to understand the what is relevant for the coherence of your whole doing. So where you would go on to, and I think a lot of the putting the bits together on a very detailed level, being very meticulous about the SOPs to be compliant. That was already looking at, say, how the things work together, but always very isolated. Each document, SOP, each process for itself, and all the initiatives around that. I think we talked about this very often.
Oh yeah.
But I think the dynamics or bigger organizations have to think about. They really this is where, as I said, we talked about this also a lot about the end-to-end like perspective. Yeah, it's more about having a complete framework that goes way beyond the process as you typically define it. Looking at all the enterprise architecture, bringing that into the picture as well, with that view, but also looking at specific application architectures that you bring as well, and also very diverse compliance frameworks that are also risk and process oriented, but all have their own aspects, and then having like this big view, and then seeing the dynamics there. So having like this it's not a one-off picture, and it's too little to say you have an as is and somewhere you have a to be. It's a living construct you have to manage, and that is fundamentally something where I think in the deliverables, the way you work about it, it's not let's do it, it's documented, we are finished. It is that like having a living like model that is reflecting. That's why process mining, it's showing real data. It's showing the KPIs that is there now, and not, we measured it, half a year ago. So this whole, let's say, vision of this whole model of your company with all the different entities, it's like, it's vibrating, it's colorful, it's expanding all the time. True. And it's, there's things kind of being stopped. And being able to manage that requires you to be able to zoom in and zoom out, but ultimately to manage it on a like strategic management perspective, you have to have a complete different view on this whole model. It has to be much more dynamic. It has to be much more say, connected to the real setup and situation, and it has to be much more agile. That's the big shift. So the fundamental principles are very much in place, but to be able to cope with the dynamics that we have now, you have to think completely different. It's a much more, I would say, it's a more sophisticated way you have to go about it, not in the sense that the academics were wrong, but they were too static in the whole way they were thinking about it. So it's like a fluid dynamics you have to, it's not like a laminar flow. Yeah. It's like you have to be able to understand like dynamic flows and turbulent flows rather than just a laminar stream of activities.
I do remember that Thermodynamics 101 was one of the hardest courses I ever took in my studies. So don't bring back those memories, please.
Traumatic.
They were traumatic. Yeah. No. Well.
Yeah. When you had pipes that went around corners, and you had to then,
I don't want to know. No, I don't want to know.
Speed they started going turbulent.
I leave that for my son, who starts studying physics in next week on university level. So I leave it to him. He's probably smarter than I was, so that's good. Now, but coming back to your point, I think you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I notice very often is if when you look at companies that want to map what they do, so they want to build up that repository of process information, is that they tend to simply say, we're going to go all the way down to level 5, and we do it for every single process. And I think that in some cases is overkill. I would argue that your first 2 or 3 levels of your hierarchy are actually rather standard, and they apply to virtually everybody because the labels are very generic. But the first level where you actually go into a process level, you can keep that rather simple. And if you need more detailed information, you make it for that specific situation. But I wouldn't say you go by default all the way down unless you already know that you're going to be orchestrating or automating certain parts of your process. Then you need that level of detail. But I think that goes into your agility point, where you say, I need the information. I need to know how things are related to each other, but I don't need to know it in every little freaking detail for every process that I have.
Yeah.
Eventually, you will build up that repository at the time that you actually need it. You simply create it then. Because everything that you create that you're not using afterwards is simply ballast. So it's additional weight that you need to carry and that you need to maintain.
Yeah.
So you need to be really, really, I would say, dynamic in the scope of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I mean, so that was the idea behind the first article, and then in the next articles, probably I'll try to dive in a bit deeper and look in some adjacent things and see what other questions I get from my company, from my customers, because that's very often my inspiration. What are my customers talking about? What are they asking for? How can I share that knowledge and experience through an article? And then later on, just like Roland, I'm going to take everything, slap it into one document, and then make a book out of it. Sorry, Roland, it's much more complicated than that. I know. I know.
Well, actually, Roland says, no, it's not so complicated. He says you just have to sit your ass down and get it done. Yeah, so that's why I said, okay, so that's why he's been super disciplined, and he's already working on his second book.
I admire him for that, for sure.
Yeah. So
remarkable.
Everybody has their hobby. I have my Pico.
Which, by the way, Russell, that brings me, now I'm talking about Roland, by the way, we still have 2 copies of his first book. So I want to re-emphasize for the people listening, leave a comment on why you think that book would be good for you, and we'll take the 2 most creative contributions and send the book your way.
Yeah, so what actually happened is that we had a lot of entries, but we saw that nobody really qualified for the book.
That's the whole point. I want to raise the bar a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly. So we'll...
Probably a lot of people were on vacation already when we brought that one out. So let's recall that, and let's reopen this little contest, so to speak. So if you're interested in the first book that Roland Wolt, that's what we're talking about, wrote, go back to the last episode that we had of last season, and then you can find out all the details. Leave a comment to the LinkedIn post we're going to be doing, announcing this particular episode. And if you have a creative way of describing why that book would add value to your life, we're going to take the 2 best entries and send you the book.
Exactly.
How about that, Russell?
That sounds great. Actually, also the next topic when we have a one-on-one, I also was just actually doing some training and some discussion with a customer that's doing a bigger migration from EPC to BPMN, and it seems to be so there was a kind of like a surge of customers going that path, not just because they were migrating the tool, but also just for the, like say, getting rid of the legacy EPC. And it's always interesting to see then, and that's going back to your article on the everything used to be better earlier. Yeah. So
yeah.
but maybe we'll see a kind of like a revamp of the EPC to a certain extent. But it was quite interesting to see how, to a certain extent, and this is something we can take up with the Prozessphilosophen, to a certain extent, in a business process management environment, BPMN isn't the ultimate modeling notation, really. And on the other hand, when you say, but okay, so it was invented for automation, so let's have a look at all these examples for automation. But then again, here it's very proprietary, linked to a certain implement automation tool. So it's not like that we have an exchangeable format that can be used between different tools. And even the migration and conversion of BPMN to BPMN between different tools has its challenges. If you look into the XML, there's a lot of, let's say, overhead or non-standard additional information being brought into it. So ultimately, at some time, you can say, well, I don't know what the actual, if there's a celebration sometime 10 years BPMN or something. We have to look this up, But I think
it's older than that already.
Yeah, so there will be some jubilee coming up, and then we have to talk about, did BPMN and everything, what were the hopes that went into this modeling notation, if it paid off, if it is the world a better place because BPMN was put in place. And I think there's definitely a lot of aspects that you could say yes, but then maybe there's some things where there's a bit of a disillusionation there. So that's a real cool topic we could talk about.
Absolutely. Would you be surprised if I told you that?
You've already written an article in LinkedIn about that.
No. I don't know, actually. I might get it. I might be close to my 100th article shortly, but other than that, BPMN 1.0 was released in May 2004. So that's over 21 years ago already. So we might wait 4 more years and then do the 25th anniversary.
Yeah,
if we still have the podcast,
exactly.
Which I hope we do.
Yeah, that would be a take on it.
What you're basically saying is you're almost invoking a religious war on EPC versus BPMN. There's a couple of shorts in the What's Your Baseline podcast on this where JM and Roland go at it.
Okay.
So we can redo that, or we can drag everybody into it when we are in Stuttgart on the All About Process Management conference.
Yeah, and that's a good thing that we can take it up there. And I'm not, just to make this clear, I do not believe that there's going to be a comeback for EPC.
No. I know.
So that's one thing. But what I did see, and that's something where I think, so is modeling dead, or are modeling conventions dead? So looking at, like, say, CPM that has a much more structured, it's more about the objects and relations. I also love more the graph idea behind actually the objects and relations in a more dynamic, fluid state. Coming from process mining, you have much more dynamically generated views on the data in a certain context. So I'm actually arguing that if there is a transcendence, like going from whatever, like many gods to one god, maybe to something like more esoteric, like Buddhism, then maybe there will not be one model. It will be more a fluid state of a big model where everything is somehow dynamically managed. That's something, but definitely taking the BPMN perspective as something that was, came on the market 20 years ago, and more and more it is an established notation, and it has a lot of technical
For sure.
aspects that are super. This is something we could take up as a topic maybe to the to Stuttgart, discuss it with that wide range of experts that have very different views, because a lot of them come from automation.
That would certainly trigger some
like
conversation. Yeah, that would trigger some discussion, I guess. All right. Well,
so good
thank you very much,
brainstorming
Russell.
today.
Yeah. I hope that the people like that as well. Stay tuned for more episodes in season 4 of the BPM 360 podcast. Feel free to like and subscribe. That would help us as well, because we do it for shits and giggles from that perspective. It's our hobby. Thank you all for listening. Russell, thanks for being here. Speak to you next time.
Take care, Caspar.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.